So in this unit's called resource allocation. And our first step in understanding resource allocation is understanding what a resource is. So our objective for this lesson is I can explain what a resource is and identify different types of resources. So what are resources? Well, simply put, a resource is something that we can use to fulfill a need or want. So every time that we interact with something, think about if you're hungry, if you're thirsty, even flipping on a light switch, every single one of those actions is interacting with a resource. They're the building blocks of our lives and the foundation of progress and development. Now, there's a multitude of different types of resources, but there's really three primary categories. So the first is natural resources. These are gifts from nature. They come from our planet. They're not created by humans. These are things that we can find in the natural world. The second type is human resources. And really, what this refers to is human effort that's directed towards producing goods and services. The last type of resource is capital resources. And those are kind of like money, products, new inventions. Like, how do we use human made things? Now, for this unit, we are only going to focus on one of these types of resources. So we're going to focus primarily on natural resources. We're not going to talk about human resources or capital resources. We're only going to focus on natural resources. So within natural resources, there's actually two different types of natural resources. The first type is renewable. And we'll talk about what that means and some examples of that in a minute. And the other type, though, is non-renewable. So these are the two types that we're going to be dealing with in this unit. Now, renewable resources, this is something that's it's natural and it does not have a limited supply. Now, I use the term renewable energy because mostly that's kind of what we're talking about when we talk about renewable resources is this source of energy and how we power our lives. But really, renewable resources and renewable energy, these can be used interchangeably. So renewable resources can be used again and again, and they will never run out. Like if you think of a solar panel, you're never going to run out of solar energy unless the sun explodes, and then we got bigger problems on our hands. The same with wind energy or geothermal energy or hydropower energy. These are things that we can use over and over and over again, and we'll never run out of this type of resource. Okay, the other type of resource is non-renewable, and non-renewable resources is the exact opposite. So it's an energy resource that is not replaced or is replaced very, very slowly by natural processes. So fossil fuels are a good example of a non-renewable resource. Fossil fuels are continually produced, but they're produced by the decay of plant and animal matter, and their rate of production is extremely slow, very much slower than the rate at which we use them. So it could take thousands and thousands and thousands of years for plant and animal matter to turn into fossil fuels. We use them faster than that, which means that we can't really wait around for all of that plant and animal material to turn into more fossil fuels. So this is why it's called non-renewable. They are not replaced, or in the case of fossil fuels, they're replaced extremely slowly. Now, when we look at our consumption of what type of resources we use, especially in the US, we mostly use non-renewable resources. If you look right here, we can see that renewable resources only make up 6.7% of our energy consumption. So that's going to be something that we're kind of talking about in this unit is the difference between renewable and non-renewable, and then considering the impacts of being so heavily reliant on these non-renewable sources of energy. Okay. Now, when we look at the different examples of renewable and non-renewable resources, in the renewable category, solar energy is a big one, but we also have plants and biomass. Wind is a very common one. If you see windmills, anytime you drive down I-65 or I-55, you'll see windmills on the left and right. There's windmill farms all throughout Illinois. And then water. And we're going to kind of focus on water most particularly in this unit. On the other side, for non-renewable resources, we have things like minerals, like diamonds and gold. right? Oil, which is a big one. Oil powers almost all of our machines, including the cars and buses that get us to and from school. Coal is another non-renewable resource that we are heavily reliant upon, and natural gas. So if you ever light a stove in your house, you're using natural gas, which is where that's how we're able to kind of fuel that flame. So these are the different types of resources, and we're going to be examining their uses and looking at different issues related to them, most particularly water. So now that we understand a little bit about the different types of resources and how they're used in our lives, at least a little bit, we want to move on to the next step. So after this video ends, our next steps are as follows. Number one, we want to make sure that your notes for this lesson are complete. Number two, we want to complete this lesson's practice activity. If you'd like to do this on paper, there are paper copies available in the classroom. If you'd prefer to do this digitally, you can access it and complete it through Canvas. And when we have practiced using the knowledge and understand it completely, and you feel like you're ready to demonstrate your understanding, then we want to move into this lesson's mastery check. Okay, let me know if you have any questions, and good luck.